The cold metal of the derelict trade station groaned under the weight of silence. Kesh pressed herself into a shadowed corner, barely daring to breathe. Her companion, Eerie, clung to her side, her large eyes reflecting the dull glow of distant starlight through the cracked viewport. Both girls were far from home, far from any place that remembered them, far from anyone who would care if they disappeared. They had no clothes that fit, no papers that mattered, no identity that could protect them. In this station, unregistered beings like them were nothing more than mistakes, problems to be solved or, more often, ignored. The station itself had once been bustling. Trade ships of countless species had docked here, delivering everything from rare minerals to exotic foods. Now it was empty, its corridors filled with the whisper of wind through broken panels, the occasional clank of rusting doors swinging in zero gravity. For most inhabitants, the station had long become a hazard, a place to avoid. But for Kesh and Eerie, it was a prison without walls. Kesh shifted slightly, wincing as the metal floor scraped against her bare skin. She had tried to find scraps of cloth, even old rags to cover herself, but every piece had been claimed or destroyed. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but it was nothing compared to the ache of invisibility. They were ghosts. Even the scavengers who prowled the station for abandoned tech didn't see them. They didn't look for the lost, they just looked for profit.
Eerie tugged at Kesh's arm.
Her voice, small and trembling, broke the quiet. "Do you think someone will come?" Kesh shook her head.
"No one comes for us."
She tried to make her voice firm, but the truth clung to her throat.
"We have to keep hidden."
"That's all we can do." The two of them had learned quickly how to survive.
Every routine on the station, every patrol route, every flicker of surveillance lights, they had memorized it. They moved only when necessary, kept their heads low, and spoke only in whispers. But even the best strategies could fail. The sound of approaching footsteps made Kesh stiffen. A security drone hovered into view, its sensors sweeping the corridor. Kesh and Eerie pressed themselves into a corner, holding their breath. The drone's scanning light passed over them without a flicker of recognition. They exhaled quietly, relief mingling with fear. "That was close," Eerie whispered. Kesh nodded. "Too close. We can't stay here much longer. They'll notice eventually." Their world had shrunk to these tiny calculations. Move, hide, survive. Every day brought the same monotony of fear, hunger, and cold. But on this day, something different happened. The sound of a ship docking echoed through the station, louder than usual. Kesh and Eerie watched cautiously from the shadows. Most of the ships that came here now were automated freighters or scavengers, their crews long gone. But this ship was different. It was human. That was clear from the design. Rusted, patched-up panels, but with a certain stubborn charm that only humans could give a vessel. The doors hissed open, and a man stepped out. He was tall, with a rough frame, his clothes patched and worn from travel. There was no uniform, no badge. He wasn't a security officer, a trader, or a technician. He looked like someone who belonged everywhere and nowhere at once. He carried himself with a quiet confidence, moving carefully, but without hesitation. Kesh felt a strange sensation in her chest. Curiosity, something she had almost forgotten. The man's eyes swept over the corridor. For a moment he paused, almost as if he could see everything at once, the decay, the emptiness, and something small and frightened in the shadows. He said nothing at first. He simply walked. Kesh and Eerie ducked lower, instinct urging them to vanish completely. But the man stopped again, his gaze lingering on the spot where they crouched. Something in his expression was different from everyone else they had encountered. There was no disgust, no fear, no indifference. There was recognition. Kesh's heart pounded. She wanted to run, wanted to disappear, but her feet stayed rooted. Erie's grip tightened on her arm. Finally, the man spoke. His voice was calm, firm, and unmistakably human. "Both of you, come home." Kesh froze. The words made no sense. Home? Who was he? What did he mean? Erie's eyes widened, and she whispered, He wants us to go with him?" Kesh shook her head slowly. "Humans don't care about us. They only see what they can use. This is a trap." But the man did not move closer aggressively. He did not raise a weapon. He simply waited, patient, steady. There was an unusual aura about him, one that Kesh and Erie could not explain. It was not authority, not threat. It was something else entirely. Trust.
The decision did not come easily.
For years they had survived by being invisible. Trust had been a dangerous luxury. And yet, something in this human's presence stirred a spark of hope. Fragile but undeniable. Slowly, cautiously, Kesh took a step out of the shadow. Erie followed, hesitant, clinging to her. The man smiled faintly, a reassuring gesture that did not demand anything from them. "I won't hurt you," he said. "I just want to help."
The words were simple, but for Kesh and Erie, they carried a weight heavier than any danger they had faced.
They were not promises. They were a choice. And for the first time in a long while, they felt that choice might lead somewhere safe. As they stepped fully into the light, Kesh noticed small details about the human. His clothes were dirty, patched, and mismatched, yet practical. There was no luxury, no pretense. His hands were rough, scarred from work. His eyes were sharp, alert, and kind. This man had seen hardship and survived it, and somehow, that survival felt like an invitation rather than a threat. The corridors of the station suddenly seemed smaller, less suffocating. Kesh felt a flicker of something she had almost forgotten. Possibility. Maybe, just maybe, she and Erie could step out of the shadows. Maybe they could be more than ghosts. The man led them to the ship, a vessel that was rough around the edges but alive with human ingenuity. Panels were patched, wiring exposed, engines humming with steady life. It was not luxurious, but it was safe. He gestured for them to step inside.
"There's food," he said simply. 9 liters.
Warm water. Clothes. Kesh's stomach growled, a reminder of weeks without proper meals. She glanced at Erie, whose face mirrored her own mixture of disbelief and cautious hope. "This,
You really mean that?" Kesh asked.
The man nodded. Yes, no conditions. No questions. Just, come home. The words settled over them, warm and unfamiliar. Home. A place that had been lost, erased, or never existed. The word felt heavy with promise. As the doors of the ship closed behind them, Kesh and Erie allowed themselves a small, trembling sigh. For the first time in what felt like forever, they were not running, not hiding, not invisible. They were seen. And being seen meant that someone, somewhere, cared enough to act. The human, Elias Ward, as he later introduced himself, did not offer speeches. He did not demand explanations. He simply guided them, quietly confident that survival was more than staying alive. It was giving people the chance to matter. And for Kesh and Erie, that was a concept almost alien to them. But as they sat together in the warmth of the ship, the hum of engines vibrating beneath their feet, a small spark of hope began to grow. The galaxy had forgotten them, ignored them, but one human had not. And for now, that was enough. The Wayfarer's Mercy moved slowly through the dark reaches of space, its patched hull humming steadily against the void. Kesh sat near a small viewport, staring out at stars she had never known. She could still feel the cold corridors of the station pressing against her skin, the fear that had been constant for so long, and yet beside her, the quiet warmth of the ship, and the presence of Elias offered something new, possibility. Erie sat close, holding a piece of clothing Elias had given them. The fabric was soft and warm, unlike anything they had touched before. She traced her fingers over it as if it were a relic from another life. "Do you think this is really safe?" she asked, her voice small. Kay shook her head slowly. "I don't know, but it feels safer than anything else we've ever known." Elias moved quietly behind them, checking the ship's systems. His hands were skilled, moving from panel to panel, adjusting readings and ensuring the engines hummed at the right frequency. There was a rhythm to his movements, a quiet competence that reassured them more than words ever could. "Food will be ready soon," he said without turning. "Then we'll talk." Keish and Irie exchanged glances. Talk? They had grown used to silence and avoidance. Talking meant explaining, giving information that could be used against them. And yet there was something in Elias's calm voice that made them consider it safe. When the food arrived, a simple meal of warm broth and bread, Keish took a careful bite. The taste surprised her. It was rich, full, and satisfying in a way she hadn't felt in weeks. Irai ate silently, eyes wide, savoring each mouthful as though she feared it would vanish. Elias watched them eat but did not interfere. There was patience in him, a careful understanding that some wounds could not be healed with words alone. After the meal, the ship fell quiet again. Kesh finally spoke. "Why did you help us?" Elias paused, leaning against a console. "Because no one should be left invisible," he said simply. "Because you deserve a choice. Because I couldn't ignore you." The girls absorbed his words. They had never been given choices. Every moment of their lives had been survival, hiding, or running. The idea that someone would help them simply because it was right was foreign, almost unimaginable. Irie's voice trembled as she asked the question that had been on both of their minds. "Why humans? Why do you care?" Elias looked out the viewport, his eyes tracing the stars. "Because humans are stubborn. We notice things others don't. We fight when we have to, not always for ourselves, but for what we believe is right. You matter." The girls were silent for a long moment. The word matter had been absent from their lives for so long that it felt like a light in the darkness, fragile but persistent. The silence was broken by a sudden beep from the navigation console. Elias's expression changed subtly, a hint of tension crossing his face. "We're entering a monitored zone," he said. "Corporations don't like unregistered freighters in this area." Keish and Irie stiffened. "What does that mean?" Keish asked. Elias turned to them, his eyes serious but calm. "It means we need to be careful. Some people won't just ignore us like the station did." "Some will see you and try to take advantage. Or worse." The girls felt the old fear returning, like shadows creeping across the walls of their minds. But Elias did not panic. He moved with purpose, adjusting their route, activating stealth protocols, and running diagnostics with precision. Hours passed as the ship glided silently through space. Keish watched Elias work, fascinated by the ease with which he handled the ship and the situations that arose. He did not hurry, did not complain, and did not demand explanations. His confidence was quiet but unwavering. Finally, he spoke again. "We'll need to reach a human-controlled system soon. There, you can be registered properly, have identification, and start to rebuild a life. It won't be perfect, but it will be safe." Irie's hand found Keish's, squeezing tightly. "You think they'll accept us?" Elias smiled gently. "They will. Humans have rules, yes, but we also have the stubbornness to do what's right. Sometimes that means bending the rules for those who need it most." The girls thought about that. Rules had always been weapons against them, walls built to trap them in a world that wanted them gone. The idea that someone might break the rules to protect them felt almost like a miracle. As night passed in the endless black of space, the ship's hum became a kind of comfort. Kesh found herself slowly relaxing, letting go of the tension that had been constant for so long. She realized that this human, Elias, had given them something far more valuable than food or clothes. He had given them safety, and with safety came the possibility of hope. Morning came, or at least the artificial equivalent created by the ship's lights, and the girls awoke to the glow of a nearby star reflecting off distant asteroids. Elias was already at the helm, scanning readings, adjusting their trajectory.
I want to show you something, he said. A human settlement not far from here.
It's small, but safe. You can rest, learn, and begin again. Keish and Irie followed him to the ship's viewport. Through the glass, a cluster of buildings and docking bays glimmered under artificial light. The structures were simple but sturdy, designed to survive storms, collisions, and the wear of time. Around the settlement, other ships hovered, coming and going with quiet efficiency.
Will they accept us? Keish asked again, the question lingering in her voice like a fragile thread. Elias nodded.
Yes, they will.
You're not alone anymore.
And you have a choice now, to live, to learn, and to grow. It's up to you what you do with it. The girls watched in awe as the settlement came closer. It was nothing like the stations they had known, nothing like the shadows and emptiness they had survived in. Here, life existed, vibrant and persistent. They saw people moving about, some humanoid, others not, working, talking, and living in a rhythm that had once been unimaginable to them. As the ship docked, Kesh and Irie felt a mixture of fear and excitement. The station had been all they knew, all that had kept them alive. This new place was unknown, yet the possibility of safety made their hearts race. Elias led them through the docking bay, and the girls noticed something remarkable. The humans and other species here did not look at them with suspicion. They glanced briefly, but there was no judgment, no attempt to push them away. It was as if being here simply allowed them to exist without fear. They were guided to a small building with warmth, beds, and fresh clothing. The clothes were simple but clean, fitting their forms comfortably. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, they could wear something without hiding their bodies in shame or fear. After they had changed, Elias offered them a seat and poured a small cup of warm liquid.
It's called tea, he said.
It helps people think clearly. Kesh sipped carefully. The warmth spread through her body, carrying a strange comfort. Irie followed, her hands trembling slightly as she held the cup. Why are you doing all this for us? Irie asked again, her voice almost a whisper.
Elias smiled faintly. Because no one should be invisible.
You're not just surviving, you deserve to live. And humans, we see value where others look away. The words were simple, yet they resonated deeply. Keish felt something in her chest loosen, the tight grip of fear that had never left her. She realized that this human, this Elias, had given them a gift they could not yet fully understand, the freedom to hope. Over the next few hours, Elias guided them through the settlement. They saw children playing, teachers instructing, engineers working on ships. Everywhere life moved with purpose, and everywhere they saw kindness, not the conditional kind they had known, but genuine, patient, and persistent. Keish and Irie began to understand something important. The galaxy had forgotten them, yes, but humans, at their best, did not. Humans saw what others ignored. Humans acted when others looked away. And humans gave choices when choices had been stolen. By the end of the day, the girls were exhausted, but awake in a new way. They were safe, fed, clothed, and most importantly, seen. For the first time, they felt the possibility of a life that did not revolve around fear. Elias stayed with them, quietly ensuring they were comfortable. He did not demand explanations. He did not push for stories. He simply existed as a steady presence. a reminder that not all beings in the galaxy would abandon them. As Keish and Irii lay on their new beds, staring at the ceiling, they realized that survival was no longer enough. There was something greater waiting for them, something they had never allowed themselves to imagine. Home, they understood now, was not just a place. It was a choice, a promise, and a possibility. And for the first time, Kesh and Eerie were ready to step forward and claim it. The stars outside continued to shine, distant but steady. And somewhere, beyond the darkness, the galaxy waited to see what two forgotten girls, guided by a human who refused to look away, would become. The settlement was quiet as night fell, but the calm felt temporary, like the pause before a storm. Kesh lay awake, staring at the ceiling of the small room Elias had provided. She could still hear the distant hum of engines from the docking bays, the soft chatter of night patrols, and the occasional clank of maintenance drones. It was a different kind of sound from the station's emptiness, one that promised life, safety, and vigilance. And yet, a part of her could not shake the sense that the world outside had not forgotten them, nor would it. Eerie stirred beside her.
Do you think they'll really leave us alone?
She asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Kesh hesitated.
I don't know. But Elias...
He seems to know what he's doing. We have to trust him.
Trust had always been dangerous. But after the weeks they had spent surviving in shadows, after seeing the quiet determination in Elias's eyes, trust felt like a fragile shield they could wrap around themselves. Morning came slowly. The two girls rose and dressed in the simple clothes Elias had provided. They followed him through the settlement, where life continued in quiet rhythms. Humans and other species moved together with efficiency and cooperation, repairing ships, loading cargo, teaching young ones. Keish marveled at how many problems humans seemed to face and solve with simple, steady determination. It was not flashy. It was not dramatic. It was methodical, persistent, and effective. Elias guided them to a small room that had been set aside for them to rest, learn, and adapt. There were books and data pads, devices to communicate with others, and a few simple machines that could teach basic skills. Keish's eyes widened at the range of knowledge, at the potential to learn things she had never even dreamed of. Eerie hesitated before picking up a pad, scanning the interface as if it were a puzzle she had to solve. You'll need to know how to communicate properly, Elias explained. Not everyone will understand your language, but humans are adaptable. And once you can share your knowledge, you can help others too.
The girls nodded, but attention hung over the day. Kesh noticed that not all faces they passed in the settlement were kind.
Some glanced with curiosity, others with suspicion. Some, she thought, seemed almost calculating. Elias noticed it too. Later, as they walked through the main plaza, he spoke quietly. There are people in the galaxy who do not want unregistered species to exist freely.
They see it as a threat or a mistake to a race. We have to be cautious even here.
Kesh's stomach tightened. Threat?
What kind of threat? Corporate enforcement, Elias said. They don't care about laws or morality.
They care about control and profit. If they find you, they might want to capture you, study you, or worse.
That's why we have to be careful about who knows you're here. Erie's hands trembled.
Why us? Why would they care about us? Because you survived when others wanted you gone, Elias said. And sometimes, surviving is a kind of power. The girls absorbed his words. It was strange, almost overwhelming to think that their mere existence could matter. That humans, with their stubborn insistence on fairness and protection, could see value in what the galaxy had tried to erase. The next few days were a mixture of learning, adjustment, and quiet vigilance. Kesh and Eerie practiced using communication devices, learned about the settlement's routines, and began understanding basic human technology. They discovered that Elias had anticipated almost every need, preparing the settlement to accommodate newcomers like them. But one afternoon, a sharp alarm split the air, red lights flashed across the plaza, and automated messages echoed through the settlement. Keish's heart leapt. Something was wrong. Elias moved quickly, guiding the girls to a secure room beneath the main building. "Stay here," he said. "Trust me. I'll handle this." From the room, Keish could see movement outside. Figures approaching in sleek, dark ships, far more advanced than the freighters they were used to. They hovered near the outer perimeter of the settlement, scanning and probing for weaknesses.
"They're not here for trade,"
Kesh whispered. Elias nodded grimly. "No, they're here because of you."
Yeti's eyes widened.
"Because of us."
Yes,
Elias said. "They see unregistered species as anomalies, problems to control or remove."
they won't care about your story. They won't see you as alive.
"That's why we fight." Keish felt a surge of fear, but it was tempered by something new, a spark of determination. For the first time, she did not feel entirely powerless.
They had survived before, yes, but now, with Elias guiding them, survival was not just about hiding.
It was about standing firm. Elias activated the settlement's defense protocols. Automated turrets rotated, shield generators powered up, and communications went live to alert other human settlements nearby. He worked with precision, his calm hands making decisions that could mean the difference between life and death. The attackers probed the perimeter, firing, scanning pulses that lit the night sky like ghostly fireflies. Keish and Iri watched, breath held, as Elias countered each move. He did not attack aggressively. Instead, he used strategy, creating confusion, blocking paths, and protecting the settlement's inhabitants. Hours passed in tense vigilance. The attackers were skilled, but Elias's knowledge of human systems, combined with the determination of the settlement's defenders, created an unexpected resistance. Keish realized something important as she watched him. Humans did not always win because they were strongest, but because they refused to quit. They adapted, improvised, and acted when others hesitated. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the attackers retreated. Their ships disappeared into the darkness, leaving the settlement intact but tense. Keish and Iri stepped outside, blinking at the glow of artificial lights and the quiet chatter of humans returning to their routines. You did it," Irie said softly, awe in her voice. Elias shook his head. "We did it. Together. That's what humans, and other species, do best. We protect each other when it matters most." Keish felt a strange mix of relief and pride. They had faced danger and survived, not just because of Elias, but because humans, at their best, could turn courage into action. She realized that this was different from the fear-driven survival she had known. This was hope in motion. The following days were quieter, but the memory of the attack lingered. Keish and Iri trained, learned, and helped where they could. They discovered skills they had never known: how to operate basic machinery, navigate star charts, and communicate with other species. Each small success built confidence, reinforcing the sense that they belonged here. Elias never pressured them. He guided, explained, and encouraged. He introduced them to others in the settlement who could teach them further, including engineers, pilots, and even historians who wanted to preserve knowledge from forgotten worlds. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise over the settlement, Keish spoke quietly. "I don't think we've ever had this, a place where we're seen, where we matter." I think we could stay here." Elias joined them, standing silently as they looked at the moons. "You can stay as long as you want," he said.
"But remember, the galaxy is bigger than this settlement. Danger exists, yes,
but also opportunity. And sometimes, the people who make the biggest difference are the ones who refuse to be invisible. Keish and Erie understood now what he meant. Their survival had been remarkable, but it had been passive, hiding, avoiding, and waiting. Now, with Elias, they had the chance to survive actively, to shape their own destinies and influence the world around them. Weeks turned into months. The settlement became home not just in the physical sense, but in the sense of belonging. Keish and Irie forged friendships, learned skills, and found joy in small routines. They laughed for the first time in years, helped with repairs, and even began teaching younger children about their homeworlds and cultures. And through it all, Elias remained a constant presence. Not a protector in the oppressive sense, but a guide, a mentor, and a human who refused to let them remain invisible. His stubborn insistence on doing what was right had changed their lives entirely. But even in moments of peace, Keish and Erie knew the galaxy had not forgotten them. There were forces that would never rest, that would see them as problems to control. The attack had been a warning, not the last challenge. Yet they also knew something new. With humans like Elias in their corner, and with the courage they were learning to claim for themselves, they could face anything. For the first time, they were not just survivors, they were participants in their own destinies. As Keish watched the stars glitter beyond the settlement, she realized something extraordinary. Humanity, in its best moments, did not simply endure. Humans fought, helped, and persevered. They saw value where others saw none. And for Keish and Erie, that stubborn humanity had become a shield, a guide, and a chance at life they had never thought possible. The galaxy was still wide, dangerous, and unpredictable. But for the first time, Keish and Erie did not feel small or forgotten. They felt seen. And being seen, they understood, was the beginning of everything.